Alright, welcome to another tutorial in Maya. Today we're going to take a look at how to create a motion path and attach an object to that motion path. You can see here I've done just that. I've created a motion path that this sphere can sort of travel along the same line there. And basically I've duplicated the same thing and just sort of displaced them a little bit in 3D space. So I only basically made one line or one curve and then duplicated it, and you can see where everything is kind of rolling along like that. So motion paths are really cool in Maya, and they're real simple to set up. So let me show you that process. I'm going to push pause. As you can see, we have lots of curves here, we have some geometry, and basically we have the, this is telling us that it's about 300 frames long, that this curve is 300 frames. So in order to do this, let's just create a new scene. I'm just going to go to new scene. I'm not going to save that. And what we want to do is create a curve. So what I'll do, come to create and get your CV curve tool. Now let's, instead of starting a curve on the grid here, let's just press the space bar once, and we'll go to the top view and we'll press that and maybe scroll out a little bit. And what you want to do is just, I'm going to randomly click in one spot, click again, click again, click again, click over here, click there, and I'm just going to click in the space up here and sort of just make a random curve. We'll try and bring that around like that, and we'll go right about up to there. Okay, so now that we're hovering here in this view, go ahead and hit spacebar again, and then we'll hover in the perspective view, hit the spacebar. Okay, so here we go. We can see our curve right here. I'll go ahead and just select it like that and grab my tumble tool, and as you can see, it's sort of just sitting there flat on the surface. And we don't really want that. What we want to do is we want to arrange this curve in a little bit more interesting manner. So if you were to right mouse click on there and go over to your control vertex, that gives you all the little vertex points that you can move around in space. So let's do that. Let's move some. I'm going to grab this one over here, grab my move tool, and I'm going to click and I'm going to move that one up. Let's sort of select this one over here by clicking, drag, select. And let's move maybe this one over here. Let's move this straight up to here. And let's maybe take these, this one right here and move it up as well. And maybe take one of these in the center here and move it down. And maybe take one of these and move it up here a little bit. Okay, so let's stay with that for the moment. I'm going to click off of there. Now if you go back into object mode, if you right click on the curve there, go back to object mode, and I'll just sort of click anywhere on the outside here. Now if I were to click this curve, you can sort of see what's happening. It's moving around in space. It's going a little bit above and below the grid. That's great. That's what we want. And so let's scale it down just a little bit so that it fits completely on the grid. And I'll zoom in a little there. Okay, so that's about what we want. Let's take a look at the next step, and that is going to be, we're going to create a sphere to attach to this curve. So if you go up and go to your create, I'm going to do a polygon sphere, and we'll drag on the grid, and we have a sphere. I might go into shaded mode here. And let's move this sphere over here a little bit. It doesn't really matter where the sphere is because we're going to attach this to this right here. Now, if I were to leave my settings at 24 frames right here, you're going to notice something that we're going to change later, but this is the first problem that we're going to run into with doing this kind of operation, so be aware of that. So I'm going to come up here. First I'm going to select the sphere, and then I'm going to shift click the curve, and you want to make sure that you're in your animation menu right here. Go to your animation menu because we're basically assigning it an animated property. So we want to animate, and what we want to do is come all the way down to motion paths because that's what we're working with here, and we just simply want to attach to motion paths. So that basically I selected the sphere first and the curve second, and so I'll go ahead and assign that. And you can see what happened. The sphere moved over here, and it's now at the beginning of this curve. Well, if I play this animation at 24 frames, you'll see where that sort of rapidly spins around there, and it doesn't really do what we want. So we're going to change that real quick. I'm going to come back here. Let's just do an edit undo, and let's undo a couple of times. And now that takes us back to the original stage before we attached it to a motion path. So now that we're here, let's alter this timeline, and let's make it about 300 frames. Okay, and now it's at 300 frames. And now, if we were to, let's start from the beginning, we'll grab the sphere, and we're going to grab that curve, and now we're going to go to animate, and we're going to do the same thing, attach to motion path. Okay, well, now you can see on this curve that the motion path is now 300 frames long. You'll see an indicator frame here at the beginning and an indicator frame here that's saying it's 300. So we'll go ahead and press that and see what happens. Okay, our object is moving through space on that path, and it's doing pretty much what we wanted it to do. Going a little above and below, but you'll notice that when it gets to 300 that it sort of hangs up. It ends there and then jumps back over here to frame 1. A lot of cases you don't want that. We want this to be a continuous loop so it has a nice fluid, smooth motion. So I'm going to put pause there for a second and make sure you're in object mode. I'm going to click this, and that's selecting our curve. Now, in order to change that this curve just a little bit so that it's a continuous flow, we're going to have to come up here into our surfaces set. And when you change to surfaces, you'll notice that you have an option now under surfaces, your edit curves, that we can basically close that curve with this option right here, open close. So with your curve selected, I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And as you can see, it sort of went and closed that curve. It sort of figured out, hey, I need to connect myself to the very beginning where I should be. So now when I play this, you'll notice that the object goes straight through, and it'll end up on 300, and it'll just loop continuously as long as the animation is playing. So that's a good way to create your first loop. Okay, so we built a curve and we attached that ball to there, and that looks pretty good. So the next step, I'm going to rewind back here, and let's just click off of there. You'll notice that we do have our geometry and we do have our curve. So I'm going to basically duplicate that. So just a Command D, and that'll duplicate it, and I'm going to move it over here. Now, I want to make sure that I do something at this point. Right now, I duplicated the curve and the geometry, but I didn't necessarily duplicate the fact that it's on a motion path, that this is going to be attached to a motion path. So if I were to play the animation from this point, you'll notice that it's not moving. So what we'll do is we'll correct that. We have that selected. Let's make sure we come back up here into our surfaces and go back to animation. And what we'll do is we'll animate that, and we will go to motion paths and attach to motion path. Okay, now when I play that animation, you'll see where the geometry is doubled and it's basically doing the same thing. So that's kind of what we want. Great. Now let's rewind to the beginning, and let's choose this set again. I'll choose it doesn't matter, just select both of them. And we're going to do a Command D, or duplicate, and we'll just move this over a little bit. And then remember, we want to always come back to animate, motion paths, attach to motion path. Okay, so that means that we're good to go. So I'm going to do another Command D and move that one. Oh, well, no, I'm going to let me undo that. I forgot to choose my motion path that it was going along. So let's select our object and select the motion path, Now we want to do a duplicate, and then we'll move that over a little bit. And remember, that's when you want to come to animate, and we want to come to motion paths and attach to motion path. And we'll do one more. I'll do a Command D. Well, I have to make sure I select my path and the object. Then I can Command D, move it over, come back to animate and motion paths, attach to motion path. Okay, so let's take a look at, see what we got. All right, we've got a bunch of these that are working right now, but we need to go back to these two and make sure that they're attached to their motion path. So we'll go to motion path, attach to motion path. I'm going to click on this one, and I believe that's its path. And we'll animate and motion paths, attach to motion path. Okay, so there you have it. We now created a motion path and assigned some simple geometry to it. And that's really great because you can use this to sort of automate a sequence. If you have something that has the same kind of motion that's going to be going on consistently in the scene, then you might want to create a custom motion path to make that object move around kind of autonomously and automatically. So there you go. It's the concept that counts. So practice with creating curves and assigning to motion paths. And I hope you learned something today. And thanks for watching. Go home, read a book, and do another Maya tutorial. Okay, we'll catch you on the next one.